Welcome back to Earth Chronicles, Book 1 by H.G. Shuler on audiobook. The Fifth Pinnacle. Chapter 23. Calmness in the Storm. The meeting at the museum hotel has just been completed. It's only moments before the doors swing open, with old Jack falling unconscious and four well-meaning mortals jumping over him, their darts blasting across the room. Harlan and Angela experience a sudden awakening, like a memory being seen in advance. They already picture the scene taking place. It's as if time stands still, the two co-chosen ones taking a second to look at each other in recognition of what's happening. Their minds are in complete sync, including all past recollections leading up to this monumental moment in time. Specific memories were providing a backstory for them, like reading from a book or watching a movie, the context of which enabled them to make sense of the present and know the future. They were clearly and automatically putting together the past history of a disjointed patchwork of sights, sounds, smells, thoughts, and feelings, forming long stretches of cohesive moments into a complete picture. A key purpose of memory had become beneficial to them by way of connecting past events in the world to their internal representation of the present, giving them a sense of continuity. Only, for them, it was in a highly exaggerated form compared to other people. Vivid memories differ dramatically from person to person depending on their innate abilities, and these two, with their new superhuman capacities, had their abilities soaring off the charts. In remembering an event, or what the weather was like, or whom they were with, or what time of day it was, or how they were feeling. Were they looking out at the scene through their own eyes, or looking down at it as an observer? Did they look like they did then, or in more recent times? Due to these kinds of differences, most people's memories range from vague to near lifelike, but Harlan and Angela's memories were much more realistic and intense, with a direct connection to actuality. Their memories were like being virtually in the moment at any given time, like there was nothing separating memory from reality. Due to their intrinsic abilities, they were taking past events, adding them to the present, and seeing the future. Because of their powers, memories were now like excerpts from movie. When they had enough of them put together, they had a complete extract of what the film was all about. At that point, they had the film perfectly memorized or embedded in their minds, and they could, without strain, see where the following sequel would take them. During the past few months, Harlan Lancaster had gone from not remembering anything about his life to total and perfect recall. He could pull out memory excerpts from his past or the whole movie all at once, as could Angela. With this phenomenal new ability, they could, at their own discretion, open the pages of the coming sequel. Harlan and Angela could know the future because they knew so completely and perfectly the past. Excerpts of future happenings were coming to them in advance. Out of their perfect recall came spewing seconds of immediate future events. Usually when one returns in thought, all the way back to their adolescent years, the memories consist only of fragments or broken moments that are separated out for no discernible reason. The older a person grows, the more detached he becomes from his childhood. This is inevitable because of the very nature of memories. When a person remembers an event, whether it's happy, special in some way, or traumatic, they are not remembering the actual event from the time of its conception. They are remembering the last time they thought of that particular scene. So, the person remembers only the events as they were the last time he or she thought about them. It's the reason memories tend to fade the further time removes the individual from them. When the person remembers an event, he might drop a detail or two. The next time he remembers it, those details will not be there, and he might now drop another detail. Eventually, some memories fade away altogether. For select few people, this process runs in reverse. The actual event not fading, but rather being added back, making it more clear-cut and comprehensible. For these people, determining to recall a memory is like using a well-organized library. Their brain simply goes to the row and shelf, takes down the memory, and relives it. Each time the memory is more detailed, vivid, and comprehensible. This ability has been dubbed photographic memory, and in more recent years, total recall. Even in rare cases of people with total recall, there are still rarer cases of people who see the future. These people tend to see traumatic events moments before they happen, such as a plane crash, an earthquake, or the death of a friend or family member. However, with Harlan and Angela, it was different. It would simply be any or all events of their choice. In situations of great strain like they were now faced with, as a defense mechanism, this extraordinary gift was acting on autopilot. Whether they wanted it or not, Harlan and Angela were destined to know 20 seconds of outcome ahead of time. Throughout history, man has failed to understand how memories connect him to the future. Yet unseen events are being continually sculpted by the past. It's the reason patterns continue to repeat themselves. Conflicts in war, as well as trends in dress and grooming, political philosophies, and forms of governments, all of these, and many more, fluctuate and repeat in a constant cycle. Now, for the first time in Earth's history, one man and one woman have been given the ability to see and affect future events. Their minds, perfectly meshed, and their intuitiveness, under extreme pressure, will now determine the outcome of all four dimensions. As the door flings open, full self-awareness of the situation has already engulfed them. Their understanding of their own location in relation to each individual in the room is precise. Every movement made, every breath released, every slight sound, every threatening thought conceived, as if it were pulsating in their fingertips. Not only did they know every detail happening in the room, but they could also physically feel them vibrating inside themselves like some inhuman, instinctive, animalistic quality. As the events are streaming past them, they can not only clearly visualize and make necessary adjustments with seeming ease, they feel the moment like it has its own texture, and they can smell everything. The raspberry-flavored tonic, the vodka, the gin, and the scotch. Danny's tiny amount of citrus perfume, Solomon's $3,000 wool suit, all of it is overwhelming, like the smell of a zoo. Even the huge diamond ring his wife is wearing smells like the carbon deposits it was originally made from. All of their senses are peaking, exploding through their veins with all the connective energy of a universe. Vivid images of previous events hover in their minds like multiple scenes on the same screen. All of them connect to each other like train tracks. All of them leading to the same location, to this specific place and time. Harlan sees images of Danny on the beach before they met. He sees her watching him closely, analyzing him for days to see where he stands with his powers before she presents herself to him. While they were getting to know each other and living together, he now sees images of her extreme carefulness not to give herself away. How she would not allow him to spend more than 30 minutes with her unless he was asleep. She would leave the room, spend time in the kitchen or bathroom, go check on a neighbor, or spend more time than his normal checking things outside. Anything to break his connection with her. When they lived with Grace, she would go back and forth between the beach house, the hot dog stand where Harlan worked, and Grace's art setup at the beach. Harlan sees clearly how she questioned if he believed the old man's story, and how intently she listened, trying not to be obvious, as Angela taught him about controlling the subconscious. Doing these things would keep his connection to her broken, assuring his new, emerging abilities couldn't figure her out. Angela sees images as far back as the Civil War. The young soldier falling dead at her feet had mumbled her name. She sees herself bending over him, thinking how strange it was of him, not knowing at the time who his true identity was. She sees old Jack filled with arrogant confidence when he first mentions the name Solomon to her. And she can see herself describing to James and Grace her plan to infiltrate the government. A plan that had over the many years since worked to perfection, and that had played so brilliantly into Solomon's and now Danny's plan. She sees to an image of Major General Meade with several of his officers. They are talking with her on that dirt road near Gettysburg. "We will win this war somehow, Miss Gall. We have to, if we're to save the country. If we don't, history will go on. It just might not go on with us." She sees General Meade tip his hat, then ride along into a massive field of blue soldiers, crossing a valley to the Battle of Gettysburg. She realizes that had the Confederates won, Tallahassee would have been part of a different country. The U.S. federal government would have abandoned the buildings James had leased to them. The whole plan to infiltrate them would have been over. Both Harlan and Angela had other images, memories placed like rows next to one another, all of them in some way connecting, all leading to this place and time. They see Dany's sudden emergence with authority over Solomon, her ultimatum, and the alternate dimension, Loam, ravaged with war. They see Curtis, a spirit creature materializing with the wrong clothing, giving warning of the frailty of the quad matrix universe. And they're seeing fragments of the future splitting out from these past happenings. Ahead of time, they see the door bursting open, old Jack falling, Carter, Jen, Dylan, and Ansel leaping over him, guns raised, blasting away. And they're also seeing 20 more seconds of things to come. The other realm is watching, waiting for the final outcome, waiting to see what direction things are to go in. Will their quad matrix universe, which was millions of years in the making, come to an end, or will this just be a new beginning? What happens next seems to the others as a hectic, spiraling, out-of-control situation. It's like a dam exploding and its waters bursting loose, the danger of imminent death lurking with no way of plugging the leak. The only thing to do is run or fight your way through it. Solomon and Dany are instantly enraged at what appears to be a planned double-cross. But for Harlan and Angela, these events happen seemingly in slow motion, almost like they were mechanical in nature. They're seeing these future events ahead of time, causing their new intuitive, innate, cognitive qualities to saturate them in a state of pure calmness. The room appears extremely warm, as if in anticipation of the imminent struggle. Extemporaneous beads of sweat appear on Dany's cheeks. Running her fingers across her face, she looks at the moisture on her fingertips. Her head angles sharply toward Solomon. "Make yourself useful and check the thermostat. It's roasting in here." He motions with his head, turns in the direction of the thermostat, then flinches as he sees the door suddenly fling open. For 2 brief seconds, pandemonium flashes in old Jack's eyes. He falls down, and instantly all hell breaks loose, with Dylan, Carter, Ansel, and Jen leaping over him, guns raised, blasting darts into the room. The swiftness with which Dany and Solomon react is striking even to Dylan, who is well aware of their incredible powers. Illuminated white rings appear to burst out of them, the force of which is so strong it instantly reverses the darts, shoving them backward along with glass bottles and unfinished drinks sitting on the minibar. They fly across the room, slam into an adjacent wall, exploding and splashing alcohol and particles of glass into the sheetrock, barely missing the 4 intruders and freezing them in place. "I've nearly been killed 4 times. No 5, Dany shouts. She's looking straight at Dylan. "So go ahead. Make it 6. She hesitates. "You want to try?" "Don't you?" "Hell yes." She waits. "You don't even have a weapon, do you? Just those pathetic darts." He didn't do anything more than look at her, remembering how powerful she was. Then he mutters something beneath his breath. "You fooled me, and that's not easy to do. So, you know what I think I'll do?" "Retract your claws, Dany," Harlan interjects. "You're not killing anyone here today." She rolls her eyes and sneers, hating having to acknowledge him. "No, you've interfered long enough. There's no way you can stop me. How silly of you to think it. You haven't had your powers long enough. It's the way of the chosen. I'll do as I please like always." She raises one hand, palm out facing Dylan. "You're not going to like this." A white ring has formed around her. It quickly swells in diameter, forming an outer circle. A magnifying power is pulsating an array of intense, iridescent colors. These ultraluminous colors range from reds, blues, yellows, and greens. They're solidifying, no longer pulsating, but having leveled off into a slight vibration. There's now a large double sphere. The inside ring is made up of illuminated white, while the outer ring is a fluctuation of shining luminous colors. The beaming, brilliant sphere has Dany completely encapsulated. It is both acting as a defensive and offensive weapon. I've vaporized people before. Just like you, they turned on me. It's going to hurt like the devil, but only for a second. While Dany continues threatening Dylan, all the other nabes in the room, 9 others, have bright rings now encircling them. The energy being produced is already starting to shake the floor. Feeling the vibration, Carter looks down at his feet, then notices Jin doing the same. This won't last, he says. The building can't take this. As the insaneness of the situation unfolds, images of past events are streaming vividly from Harlan and Angela's memories. These images are connecting to the live events in the room, moving in a definite forward direction, then acting like an undercurrent to their minds and shooting out 20 seconds of the future. Due to the unprecedented nature of what's happening to them, they have moved past the limits of concentration or meditation. They have involuntarily plugged into the finite lines of energy, the continually expanding black matter of the universe. With this comes the odd stretching of time. While time is being stretched, it curves, causing a deceleration of velocity with all movement in the room. To Harlan and Angela, it appears everything is going in slow motion. Again, they look at each other in recognition of the situation. They could not be prepared better for what was truly the coming pinnacle of an unpreparable conclusion. A beam of energy shoots out of Danny's hand, rocketing towards Dylan. Harlan and Angela have already thrust up their arms, a congealed substance spinning out of them, forming a tubular-shaped protective wall, absorbing the energy like a sponge. Solomon raises his hand in support of Danny, shooting a ray of energy into the protective wall, attempting to help break it down. When all of the Nabes join in, the room starts shaking violently, rocking upwards at its corners. 10 beams are now shooting into the congealed wall. A bookshelf falls, spewing books onto the shuddering floor. Pictures, end tables, and other furnishings tumble from their perch, being shoved upwards at first, then crashing down with an explosion of noise, like the sound of metal and glass smashing together. The floor continues wavering violently when suddenly a support pillar gives way, and a huge hole opens up, taking with it one of 3 sofas. Several of the Nabes stumble but maintain their footing. They are still shooting rays of energy into the protective wall. However, the floor no longer has its main support and quickly starts disintegrating. Piece by piece falls into the gaping hole, and already the floors below them are also opening up. Carter and Jen are clamped against the wall, as are Dylan, Ansel, and Timothy, who have just made it from the center of the room. Looking down, they can see all the way to the lobby as 4 consecutive floors have collapsed beneath them. They are all on the verge of falling 50 feet to their deaths. The center areas of the floor completely collapse, sending a mushroom-shaped cloud of dust upwards and dispersing it across the ceiling. All Nabes, including Harlan, Angela, James, and Grace, are hovering within the confines of bright rings of light. The spheres are levitating, protecting them, and still the protective wall holds against the 10 rays of immense energy. The scene is one of disbelief for people looking up from the main floor lobby. "Look, aliens!" shouts a man with a small girl clamped to his side, and then panic in the lobby at the thought of extraterrestrials attacking. Some are glued to the scene high above them. Others panic, running wildly, desperate to get away from the building. The streets outside are getting crowded with people, curious to see what's going on. And then the edges of the room give way with the sound of an explosion. Carter, Jen, Dylan, Ansel, and Timothy, clamped as tightly to the wall as possible, slide downward, their bodies bending outward in a free fall. They have fallen below the protection of the congealed wall. One last time, Harlan and Angela look at each other in recognition of what they are about to do. Each of them releases one arm, pointing them beneath the 5 who are falling. Thin lines of light blast out of their hands, shooting out more of the congealed matter. This time, tiny capsules of the substance press together, forming a horizontal surface underneath them. Instantly, all 5 of them are stopped in midair, floating like hovering drones. With their other hands, Harlan and Angela move the other protective wall above them, then downward in front of Danny, Solomon, and the others. Their rays of energy are snuffed out, smothered by the wall as it flexes around them, burying them all in the mass of congealed substance. The imprisoned Nabes are screaming in protest from inside it. The startling scene hovering in midair now lowers to the lobby level as Harlan and Angela lower the 5 mortals to safety, releasing them on the marble floor. Earthquake-like conditions in the building have desisted. The situation is safe, other than the damage to the building. You two pulled it off. Curtis was giving Harlan and Angela a look of exhaustion. He had been watching everything closely, but from the safety of an unmaterialized, invisible body. The emergency is over. You've bought yourself some time. The multiverse is safe, at least for now, but it will take some doing to keep it that way. When the police arrive, tell them you want to talk to the President of the United States. Somehow, I think they'll manage to make that happen. As far as the other world leaders go, the President will take it from there. You have an opportunity to get it right this time. I suggest you start working on that immediately. You two are the powers to be now. If you fail, you have no one to blame but yourself. I'm being called away. Sorry. It's an emergency. I have to go. But what about these guys? Harlan points to Danny and Solomon imprisoned in the protective wall. Curtis looks at them, his face half smiling, half concentrating. Do what you want with them. They can't hurt you. They know that now. They can't hurt anybody anymore unless you let them. He shifts his attention a moment to Angela. Remember what I told you about your father's research? He was onto something. You already know that. Regenerating people is only a Band-Aid. One day, that Band-Aid won't be enough. Find out the reason people grow old. I can't believe it hasn't been researched more. Take care of yourselves. I don't mean to rush, but I'm needed on loan. The war is about to escalate or come to a horrible, sudden end. I can't be sure which. The Germans and the Allies both have the atom bomb. You can probably guess what they're about to do. I have a feeling we're going to see each other soon. I may need your help. It had been going on way too long, and Jen couldn't ignore the steamy noise any longer. She blinks groggily, trying to remember how the day played out, then turns to see who is operating the espresso machine. Just as she thought, it was the new girl. She had missed so much work at the Hub Coffee House, they had hired a part-timer. A part-timer that needed training on the espresso machine. When the girl finally gets it right, Jen sees her arms raise up high. About this time, she hears the words, "Well, praise the Lord." It was like the words had been held back too long, then suddenly thrown out of the girl's mouth, like she thought she had done something extraordinary. "Yes, praise the Lord," Jen whispered to herself, partly relieved the girl finally got it right, and partly relieved she was sitting here alive after all. Earlier in the day, there was a moment she didn't think it possible. She sighs, looking down into her mocha coffee. Did you just say, praise the Lord? She hadn't seen Carter walk through the doorway. He was standing at her table, freshly showered and shaved. He has on blue jeans and one of his long-sleeve pullover shirts she likes so much. You smell good, look good too. And yes, I did say, praise the Lord. I thought so. Any particular reason? She nods toward the new girl. She finally managed the espresso machine. That and she smiles, then motions with her eyes for him to sit down. All the usual reasons, I guess. When he sits, he pulls the chair up close and leans over the table, eyeing her. The next few weeks, this thing's gonna get crazy. Harlan and Angela already have a meeting arranged with the president. After that, the media gets involved. The world's not ready for what's about to be presented to them. But it's wonderful news, and I'm sure they'll see that. I think the sooner the better, don't you? He nods in agreement. Of course, it may take a year, but everyone above 50 gets regenerated. You have an amazing grandpa. You know that. Speaking of Gramps, I talked to Emma. Really? She didn't bother to hold back her laughter. I know, right? But I had to. I just got off the phone with her a few minutes ago. Harlan's going to visit her tomorrow before the news hits the airways. I'll have to be there for that. She would never believe it otherwise. Carter's hand has gradually made its way over the top of Jen's. He leans farther over the table, kissing it. What do you say about taking down that old pair of hiking boots you got stored away in a closet? What for? In a few weeks, this thing's going to be all over with. I thought we could go to Asheville and spend the day, then get a cabin in Chimney Rock, hike the trails, and what? I just thought, well, I'm not sure what I mean is... She squeezes his hand. Relax, Carter, and just say it. Do you want to start again? Start again, as in start all over. Do you mean you're ready to get it right this time? Well, I always wanted to. Yes, I'm ready. Smiling with her whole face, she raises both arms as high as she can get them, hands completely open. Well, praise the Lord. What if the aging process that we have been groomed to accept and doomed to live turned out to be a previously undetected virus? A super virus so intelligent that it hides by wrapping itself with other molecules. A virus emitting its antigens so methodically, so gradually, and in such small numbers that it mimics complete silence, producing invisibility. What if what we think we know turned out to be an illusion? And what if one day, the illusion started to crumble? That's the end of The Fifth Pinnacle, another sci-fi thriller by H.G. Shuler. Be sure to return to YouTube's channel for audiobooks by H.G. Shuler. Next up, Earth Chronicles continues in Book 2. The Blue Woman.